Welcome, everybody. This is Erica Stark, the Executive Director of the National Hemp Association, and welcome to our next installment of In Conversation With. And today we are thrilled to be talking to Jason Finnis of Bast Fibre Technologies. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks very much, Erica. Thanks for asking me to participate.
Oh, there's a lot of exciting things happening. And as we were talking before, like been just trying to think about, how long it's been since I actually met you, but I know it's been a good 4 or 5 years since we got to meet at that diner in Pennsylvania. Yep. I've been a huge fangirl ever since, as you know, watching you do amazing things and, thrilled that we were able to stay in touch. Thanks. With that, if you could please, give us a little background and a little bit about what Bast Fibre Technology does.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to. So Bast Fibre Tech is we call ourselves a clean tech manufacturing firm and engineering firm. We essentially take agricultural waste from hemp, from flax and other bast fibers, and we transform that fiber to meet the exacting needs of the nonwoven industry. So the nonwoven industry is a really big industry, and it can be anything from a car part to insulation to a baby wipe. And the focus of our company is on the single-use nonwoven category. So essentially, we're talking about baby wipes, disinfecting wipes, surface cleaning wipes. So pretty much encompasses any fabric or wipe that is used once and then discarded. And we've chosen to work in this area for a very strategic reason, is that the majority of the fiber that's used in these single-use nonwoven wipes are plastic. It's polyester or polypropylene. So a lot of people don't realize that when you're disinfecting that shopping cart at the grocery store, or you're cleaning your bathroom with a throwaway wipe, that you're essentially using a plastic bag. So most consumers, many consumers, and probably everybody listening here is trying to reduce the amount of single-use plastics that we use, whether it's the plastic lid on a coffee cup, plastic bag, straw, things like that. And in Europe, that consumer preference is actually turning into legislation called the Single-Use Plastic Directive. And it is working to eliminate single-use plastics in the supply chain of many different industries. And one of those specifically is nonwovens. So the nonwoven industry is looking very closely at natural fiber alternatives to the plastic that they typically use, which is about 80% of the fiber used in the industry is plastic. So the opportunity for us is pretty large. So we recognized when we founded this company about 7 years ago that there was going to be a shift, and that nonwoven applications for these fibers are really well suited. And so we spent the first 5 years or so of our company's life in the lab, perfecting our processes, filing a lot of IP. In 2020, we licensed in 5 patents from Georgia Pacific, dealing with products, nonwoven products made on any platform that contain bast fibers. And then our relationship with Georgia Pacific has just kind of strengthened since then. In late last year, we purchased our first production facility, which is based just outside of Dusseldorf in Germany. And in that facility, we installed a first of its kind dry processing or a cleaning and opening line that we've developed. And then early this year, we announced the acquisition of Lumberton Cellulose, which was a Georgia Pacific company. So it's based in North Carolina. Gives us now production facilities in Europe and in North America. So we're making the turn into a commercial enterprise now, which is great.
That is super exciting. I can remember how dumbfounded I was to have that realization that synthetic fibers were indeed considered plastic. I think I never really gave it a thought, and I've been super conscious of it ever since. So this is fantastic to be able to have that clean alternative. So you mentioned using waste from hemp and flax. Is it hemp waste from cannabinoid plants or grain production or either, or is
Yeah, it can actually be all of them. So we can, obviously to get the very best fiber quality, we grow specifically for fiber. But that's not all of the industry. So there's a lot of fiber or a lot of hemp that's grown for grain, and there's a lot of hemp that's grown for CBD. And we can take fiber from both of those crops and transform them into a fiber that will work here. The exception is we don't typically work with Finola, the very short varieties that they grow in Canada, because there's not a lot of fiber per stem, and the fiber biomass yield per hectare or acre is quite low. So in Europe, there's a lot more opportunity for a dual purpose crop.
do you see an opportunity for like specific grown hemp, specifically for the fiber, or is that a too high a price point and you prefer it to be residual waste from like a grain production or some other type of production?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's going to depend on the region. And I think, I've been chatting a lot with researchers and growers down in the northeastern US. And seems to be a lot of interest there for people to be growing a fiber specific crop. I think a lot of people got burned, or a lot of growers got burned on the CBD train that left the station in a very aggressive form and then kind of didn't quite live up to expectations. So there's a lot of growers that are looking for fiber, and so I think that is something that we're going to see in the U.S. The economics of the crop, the more the farmer can sell, the better. So if they can actually grow a seed crop, take off the seed, and then also sell the fiber to a decorticator, or the straw to a decorticator, that makes a lot of sense. But with everything, there's always a trade-off, right? As soon as you have a plant that is going to be a fiber variety and seed dual purpose, you've got a very tall plant. And there's no stripper headers available in the US that would, even at their highest setting, that can take the top of those plants off. So it becomes problematic from a growing perspective to actually be able to harvest all of these things.
Right. And so when you referenced your like kind of opening and cleaning system, is that a decortication system, or is that a different process?
It's different. So our company buys decorticated fiber from the decortication groups, whether they're in Europe or elsewhere. We're starting to sign contracts with groups in the US to supply the facility on the East Coast. The fiber, once it enters our facility, goes through a two-stage process. The first stage is a wet process where we clean and purify the fibers. It's also an area for us to enhance the performance, which is something we spent a lot of time working on, whether we're making the fiber more or less its moisture retention or absorbency characteristics more or less, hydrophobic or hydrophilic. We want to make the fiber fire retardant or antibacterial. This is the stage that we can do that. Then from there, it moves into this refining line, which is not quite like a decortication facility. It's a little bit more involved than that. And at that end point there, we have a completely individualized fiber that is consistent from batch to batch. So we have a homogeneous end product regardless of the input material that we put in. And we're able to give a fairly tight range for fiber length, brightness, trash content, foreign visible matter, things like that. So we can say with pretty good certainty that if we're supplying a large global brand with fiber, that we can provide month after month a consistent quality product, which will not change. Because when you're making these wipes or fiber that go into wipes, what we can't have is one canister look a little bit brown and another canister be nice and white, and it all has to look the same. Right. So we spend a lot of time on quality control.
So when you talked about inputs, and you had specifically mentioned flax before, and I think on your website you also talk about kenaf as being another bast fiber. Are your formulations specific to the plant, or you can basically take the decorticated bast fiber from any of those plants and it's seamless on your end as to the proportions?
Yeah, it's pretty seamless. each one of these fiber types has different characteristics. So we do adjust our chemistry. We will adjust some of our machine settings for various fiber types. The fiber we are most interested in right now is hemp, and then that's followed by flax or linen.
I've actually been getting a lot of inquiries, people who are asking about whether or not the same equipment that is used to decorticate hemp is also able to be used for flax. And my impression, and I may be completely wrong, is that flax is a much more tender plant, and the machinery used to decorticate hemp is probably too rough for that. But I don't really know what the process is of decorticating flax.
Yeah. Well, in the flax industry in Europe, they don't actually decorticate it. They do a process called scutching, and it's a much more gentle process, basically combing the fiber. It? Yeah, over and over and over. And then the fiber that falls out of that is called tow, and that's the short fiber flax that goes into composites, automotive, and it's the fiber that we can buy as well.
Oh, okay.
But you can run flax through a decortication line. It will work, but it's not typically done because the linen fiber would be destroyed in a decorticating line. In linen, they want to keep the fiber as long as possible. 60 centimeters is nice, or maybe longer,
right?
Fully combed. But in a decortication line, you're likely going to reduce the fiber length substantially. So It's not typically done.
Okay, so you're interested in the tow, which is basically what's left over after they comb the flax.
Yeah.
Get the longer lines.
But that said, if we're growing a flax crop for short fiber only, it can absolutely be decorticated.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if people that grow flax for the seeds, like what process they go through. I just think that I've seen hemp and flax growing side by side. And it was really interesting to see. And I know, like, historically, those two crops were grown together in colonial times here in the States as staple crops, with, most flax being more towards the linen and the hemp being more the sturdier garments and the feed ropes, sacks and things like that. But I've also heard from my husband that some of the finest linen actually was produced from hemp, and that you would really need a microscope to be able to tell the difference when the hemp was properly hand prepared for the spinning wheel. So and
on that point, quality starts in the field. So if you're going to grow a very, very high quality hemp fiber, you really have to make sure that the agronomics are right. That's possible. And back, hemp has been used for all sorts of fine textiles, but it's typically not. It's typically a coarser fiber that is more suited towards outerwear, like denim or jackets or footwear, things like that.
Yeah, something to take advantage of its sturdy properties.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of wipes, are there any properties of hemp that make it a superior bast fiber to some of the other options?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because the fibers that are used in the nonwoven industry, as I said, the majority of them are synthetic. The second biggest class of fibers would be called regenerated cellulose. So this is essentially wood or trees that have been pulped and then run through a regeneration stage, where it's a dissolving pulp is pushed through a spinneret, a tiny little hole, and a filament yarn comes out. So this is like viscose or lyocell are made from wood. So the only fibers that are used in the nonwoven industry are either synthetic or regenerated. And there's a small amount of cotton. When you regenerate or you pulp wood, you change its characteristics substantially. So when we prepare our fibers, we don't pulp them. We're very gentle with them. Our processes are gentle, and we keep the fibers intact. And an interesting thing happens, because in nature, the fibers of these bast plants are combined with phloem fiber, which is kind of going into botany here. But essentially, the job of these fibers in nature is to transport moisture throughout the plant, whether it's from byproduct of photosynthesis down or water from the roots up. That's their job. And because we keep these fibers intact and we don't damage them, that moisture management characteristic transfers into the nonwoven cloth. So what we end up seeing is better absorbency, better wicking, better wet strength, and there's a complete lack of stratification, which is a big term. But what that means is if you go into a store and you see a canister of wet wipes on the shelf, a lot of times what happens is that the top of that wet wipe will be dry and the bottom will still be wet. And there may be even a puddle of liquid at the bottom of the canister. That's the moisture transfer. And because Bast fibers don't have that, these Bast and Floam fibers, they hold on to the moisture. It means that those wet wipes in the canister remain wet from top to bottom and for a very long shelf life. So we have some inherent advantages when it comes to nonwoven wipes.
Very cool. And when you talk about the absorbency, so are we eventually looking at things like napkins and paper towels and toilet paper as well? Or are those considered nonwoven products, or are they more traditional paper products?
Yeah, I guess technically paper is a nonwoven. It's a wet laid nonwoven, but that would be different. That would be a pulp and paper type scenario.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so, so for the wipes that you're producing, are you producing an end brand from them, or are you selling the wipes on a roll to other manufacturers that produce the consumer goods, or what does that side of the supply chain?
Yeah, actually, and that's a good point, because I feel I've been a bit misleading in some of the things that I've said. In the supply chain, we only produce fiber. So we don't make a wipe and we don't make any fabric. So our core business, and the only business we have, is developing fibers for a specific end use. So our customers are nonwoven converters, and those are companies that buy fiber and make fabric. But because these fibers are so unique and interesting, we are contacted by consumer brands all the time. And we have a lot of different projects where we're creating fibers for specific brands that will do specific things. And so we work with the consumer brands as in a product development role, but then our customers are the nonwoven converters. So all we make is fiber.
And for this facility that you just acquired, I'm assuming like that's a full commercial scale facility and will be able to supply relatively large orders. Are you seeing people who are prepared to start getting those consumer products on shelves in the near future, or do you think that's still several years out?
Oh, no, that's not several years out. That's definitely in our immediate future. We've been doing this for a long time, and that facility was expensive, so we need to start selling fiber. So no, we have customers ready. I would be surprised if you don't see 2022 launches of certain products containing these fibers. And you're right, that facility is large. It's 65 acres, I think, and 350,000 square feet. It has a 24/7 operation right now, and we will continue that. And our goal is to expand and triple that facility's capacity in the near future.
Oh, wow. And then would you be will that one facility like supply all of your needs for the foreseeable future, or do you see opening other ones across the country or the continent sometime in the next 5-10 years, bigger picture plan?
Yeah, we're definitely always looking down the line. I think the opportunity here is pretty big. And as the supply chain in the US matures and there's more decorticators, there's a better foundation of crop rotation, and we can understand exactly where the fiber is coming from, then it would make sense for us to look at additional facilities, whether they're here in Europe or elsewhere. I think expansion's on the horizon.
Excellent. And looking at the current North American market, and especially as we look towards the bigger sustainability goals of utilizing hemp for what it can do for carbon capture on the cultivation side, I think we would all agree that importing fiber is not the most environmentally friendly sourcing of fiber. Are you seeing that the North American market with decortication facilities that are available are able to keep up with what your demand is projected to be, or do you need to see more of those types of facilities coming online? And is there a kind of an ideal range of where, if like where a facility would be located in relationship to yours to absolutely make this the supply chain as environmentally friendly as possible?
Right. But you know, the mantra of our company is to grow, process, and sell in the same geographic region. So our facility in Europe is right in the middle of the raw material sourcing, and it's very close to our non-woven customers. The facility in the US, the Northeast, is a great place to grow hemp. And our facility there is very close to the North American non-woven fabric producers. So the idea is not to be sending fiber in from Europe. However, we are expecting to bring fiber in from Canada into the Northeast US, because, you know, once the fiber has been decorticated, it can be shipped relatively economically.
True.
Right. So that's not I think the biggest proximity issue is farmers to decortication. That's where you have a limited amount of space or a limited amount of miles that you can transport the straw economically. But, you know, right now shipping anything anywhere isn't economic. The shipping rates are so high that it's ridiculous. But we will be bringing fiber in from all over the US into this facility, as well as from Canada.
Excellent. So you don't see any supply issues that we don't have enough decortication to keep up?
We need more for sure. But I'll tell you, we've spoken to a lot of decorticators, and they seem to be well supported financially. They seem to be quite eager to start getting out there and building facilities. So I think over the next 24 months, we're going to see a pretty decent supply chain emerge in the US. Probably even faster than that.
And and speaking of, from my perspective and trying to keep on top of watching facilities come up and seeing everything from, really kind of small scale in-field decortication systems to big commercial scale facilities, for your non-woven purposes, is there a type of decortication that's better than others, or is your process really forgiving that you can basically take Bast fiber from anywhere as long as it's relatively clean?
Yeah, well, yes, the answer to that is yes. We can take fiber from almost anything and turn it into a good quality fiber. That said, there are techniques of decorticating fibers that are better than others. And I think you just have to realize that it's called fiber elongation, which is the ability for a fiber to bend without breaking, is very low in hemp or in bast fibers, which means they are brittle. So the more gentle you can be in decorticating, the higher quality fiber you're going to get out at the end. So, when I talk to decorticators, it's important that the type of machinery they choose is market led. So like if you're going to be making fiber for insulation or automotive parts, you have a little bit more option as far as what it is that you can use for your decortication platform. But if you're going to be trying to sell into the textile market or into like our consumer non-wovens, you have to be a little bit more cautious.
So do you advise companies that might be having an eye to wanting to be able to supply fibers to companies such as yourself as to which direction to go?
Yep, we would for sure. We would talk to them about the various platforms that are out there and what do we think is the best. And it's not even what we think is the best. We test the fibers. So as decorticators come to us, they will send us their fiber samples, then we will evaluate them. And we put them through quite a process and come up with a certificate of analysis that says, your average fiber length is this, your micron is this. And, we come up with what it is they're producing. And then we can tell them pretty quickly whether their fiber or platform will work for us.
Excellent. So you're basically filling in for the lack of standards that we have on the fiber side of the industry that are, hopefully in the process of being developed through like ASTM and things. So you can't just give somebody a spec and be sure that what's going to come to you meets that. You have to actually take the samples and make that determination yourself.
Yeah, we do. It's very important for us because the customers we sell to are very large. We're in there trying to replace a synthetic fiber or regenerated cellulose, and those fibers are always exactly the same. They're always the same micron, same length, same everything. And natural fibers have some variation. So we're always working to keep our quality control standards very, very tight, so we can, gain the confidence of these large consumer groups that we can provide what they want.
Excellent. Super, super exciting to see all this. And I know you've been working really hard on this for a really, really long time.
Yeah, it's now, I think I've been in the hemp industry now for about 30 years. I started my first hemp company back in the early 90s, selling t-shirts and all sorts of different hemp items that anything you can make, selling at folk festivals and flea markets back when I was in my early 20s. And so it's been a long time. One of the greatest things you can have as an entrepreneur is timing. And up until now, I think I was always ahead of the curve, but I think we have timing on our side now, and the consumer preference, legislation, and the global brands, they're all moving in this direction. So I think we're finally at a point where we'll see some pretty good adoption of these fibers.
I definitely hope so. And I'm curious too, do you think that when we start to see these products on the shelves, will they be marketed as hemp fiber or just sustainable natural fibers? And it will just be hemp because it's better? Well,
we obviously would hope that it's marketed as hemp. I'm afraid we don't have any control over how the big companies will do that. But it would make sense that they're going to be marketing and pushing forward the compostability, the environmental, the low environmental impact. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some labeled as hemp or Bast fibers or something.
Yeah, that'll be super exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go to my, grocery store or Staples and see these things and be able to buy them. I still carry around a canister that you gave me a very long time ago.
Yep.
And it's one of my favorite display items to show what this potential is. So super exciting times. You're really trailblazing here, and it's been a long time coming, and just congratulations and thank you.
Hey, well, thank you.
So long, and
it's an exciting time, and we have a pretty good team here now. We've got a lot of people working and a lot of people rowing in the same direction. The interest that's coming from, whether it's from the USDA down to the individual farmers, everybody seems to be behind this. We've got New Holland out there designing equipment for it. You've got a lot of global expertise because there's a lot of people who've been doing this as long as me or longer. And it's exciting to see.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, please come back and share any news you have with us. We would love to continue this and keep everybody informed. It's super exciting stuff. And I mean, you're doing it. You're doing what we all envisioned we wanted to happen with hemp. It's taken a little bit longer than a lot of us had hoped, but it's coming, and it's people like you that are making it happen, and definitely eternally grateful for that.
Cool. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. We hope you enjoyed this segment of In Conversation With, and hope you'll stay tuned next time. We will have a slide at the media end of this, so you can check out Bast Fibre's website and keep abreast of all the latest developments. Until next time, thank you.